So I see people are starting to sign up. We will welcome everyone in a minute, and just waiting for everyone to have the time to be registered. So welcome as you sign in, as you registered, as you appear. Takes a few minutes for the technology to welcome everyone, and then we'll start the webinar proper. Okay. I think, I hope everybody's been able to connect. Everybody has their link. Okay, right. Okay, well, I think we're going to start now. It's 15:01, very Swiss timing, 1 minute late. Hello, welcome everyone to our live chat from Lausanne, not necessarily IMD campus, but definitely Lausanne. Although Anna, you're a little bit out of
not in Lausanne.
out of Lausanne. Today we will be talking about admissions tips, and my guest is Anna Farrus, Director of MBA Recruitment at Admissions. We have a deadline coming up May 1st, and so Anna today is going to share tips and tricks and recommendations for all of you out there who are either planning to apply for the May 1st deadline, and I know some of you are, or planning to apply perhaps later on in the year for the other deadlines. So Anna, thank you so much for being here today. We will have some time for questions later, but before we get to the questions part, can we start really at the beginning? Can you tell us what are the basic requirements when applying for an MBA at IMD?
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Marcella, for having me. I'm not in Lausanne. I'm 20 minutes away from Lausanne, so not too far away. And thank you, everyone who's joined us today in this live chat. We generally have, as Marcella was saying, this live chat in our campus. And today, you know, you see that my background, unfortunately, I cannot be as fancy as Marcella, but I don't have a green background, so I cannot create.
You look like an alien. Yes.
But anyway, so I'm very happy to be here today, especially since we're getting really close to our May 1st deadline. So as per your question, Marcella, the basic requirements are nothing too different or too difficult than you know, other business schools. Basically, we want people who have some work experience. So generally, we say that you should have at least 3 years worth of work experience. But also, it really depends on the kind of quality of your work experience. It can be that you don't have a lot of work experience, but the kind of progression that you've had in those 2 or 3 years of work experience has been quite impressive, and so, you know, we would be interested in seeing that profile. We want people who have had some sort of international exposure. We like to see that either you have worked abroad, but you know, not always is easy to have a job in a different country. We understand that, so you know, we also value if you have worked in international teams, if you have worked in international projects, you know, to see that you're able to manage cultural differences among, you know, people that you're working with. We also want to see in terms of your work experience that you've had some sort of leadership experience as well. Not necessarily that you have managed a team, even though that, you know, it's always a plus, but you know, have you managed a project, or have you indirectly managed people? Sometimes, you know, you're not directly managing a team, but because of you're managing a project, you have to deal with different stakeholders and different teams to ensure that that project comes to fruition. So we want to see that as well. So that's in terms of work experience. Then of course, you know, we have the academics side of it. So we need you to have a bachelor's degree. The kind of degree that you have, or it's, if it's finance, or if it's engineering, or it's more on the social sciences, is we're very open to that, as long as you have.
Yeah, and also we've had doctors, we've had musicians, so it really doesn't matter in that specific.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I didn't say that for work experience, but I think for work experience, the same applies. We like to have a very diverse group of people in the class. So, you know, it doesn't have to be somebody who has worked in a huge corporation. It can be family business, it can be a startup, it can be a company that's small and you know, is not well known. So that's fine. So that's in terms of academics, and then we also require your Gmat or GRE. We accept both tests at the moment, and I know that's a question that many of you will have in terms of what happens now with the Gmat and GRE. Can I apply without it? So we can talk more about it. But in terms of the scores that we're looking for, I always like to say that our average score is 680. So keep that in mind. It doesn't mean that if you have a lower score than that, you're not going to be admitted. We will look at the rest of your application. And it doesn't mean that if you have a 770 score, we will admit you. Again, it will depend on the rest of the application. But ideally, you would have a score around 680 to make you more competitive. So that's in terms of GMATs, academics.
The basic requirements.
Exactly.
And you said just because you have 770 doesn't mean you admit. We'll look at the whole application. So what do we look for? Because we've now had the basic requirements. I'm interested, and I've spotted IMD as one of my star schools that I'd like to apply for. There's an application form that I'll need to fill in. What are we on our side? What's the admissions committee looking for when they read an application?
So I think I've already, in the basic requirements, I already mentioned a lot of the things that we're looking for in terms of career progression. That's very important. If you've been in the same job for let's say 5 years and there hasn't been any progression, we're going to be a bit worried. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have had several promotions, even though that would be, quite nice. It's more about, have you been able to lead different projects in your capacity? Have you been able to have different achievements in what you're doing?
Increased responsibilities,
exactly,
maybe not necessarily in terms of a promotion.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So we want to see certain progression. Academics, we want to see that you did okay during your studies. We also understand that when you start a bachelor's, you're 17, 18, sometimes your maturity level is not super high. So, if we see that there's, again, a progression in your grades, and that's good. If we see a gap, then, we're going to be like, what happened there? So, I think we talk already quite a bit about career and academics. I think things that we look that are not super specific in the application form are more kind of the soft skills. We are looking for people who are able to demonstrate that have good communication skills, and that's something that is very important to us, that are able to work with teams. We were talking about, leading teams, but it's not only about leading teams, it's also about being able to work with teams, being able to take a step back. Sometimes you don't always have to take the lead in a team. How do you deal with difficult situations? Are you able to solve problems? So we want to see also this kind of problem solving skills. We want people who are driven. We want people who, you know, given a situation that, you know, it's difficult for them, they're still going to push forward. They're still going to try to achieve whatever goal they have. I think nowadays, actually, with the situation that we're all living in, it would be very easy for many people to say, "Oh, this is too difficult," and give up. We don't want people who are, you know, willing to give up at the first problem. We want people who are going to really move forward. So those are the kind of soft skills that, you know, we really want to see in our MBAs.
So if I'm applying, it's really important that I make sure that in the application form, at least I sort of tickle your curiosity, the admissions committee's curiosity in relation to these qualities that you've just explained. So really, I would say take the time, because the application form is not immense. There are limited fields, there are limited areas that you can fill in. But when you do that, do take the time to really make sure that the way you tell your story, you tell it in a way that these elements are highlighted, so that so that our curiosity is piqued or tickled, and then then the next step would be to get that invitation to an interview day.
Absolutely. And I think what you just said, Marcella, is so true. I think it's to create a story that makes us want to know more about you. I think that's perfect. And I think, you know, as Marcella was saying, our application form is not huge. It's actually quite short. We try to make it as easy for you to fill out as possible. But you still have some opportunities to create a story. We have the essay in the application form. And I think that essay, even though it's short, we don't want to be reading books. We want a short essay, but that essay really gives you the opportunity to explain to us a little bit more who you are, and you know, the kind of things that make you attractive for our program. And then you have the CV as well. And you know, I think the CV sometimes it can be really underutilized. You have one page where you can really talk about your achievements and the things that you've done in your career, so take advantage of the CV as well.
So make sure that they combine the CV, the space that you have there, and the space that you have in the application form, to give us as much detail in an extremely concise way. Because that's the other thing, you know, you said, oh, it's very simple, you want to make it simple as possible. And I was thinking, well, there's actually also an art in telling in a short paragraph everything about yourself. So really take the time, I would say, to do that. You were also saying for me, the story, there's another field that also completes the story, is about your career goals and how your MBA fits in, because again, you also said how we can, you know, why that would make us interested in you. Again, we only have 90 places. We always are thinking, what would this person bring in the class so that 89 other people could benefit? It's not just, you know, what we like and why we pick them. It's always with that bigger, wider thought process in the back of our minds. We need to make sure that that person is somebody that 89 other people are going to learn from. And yes, and so just to go back, we're saying also that the story is about your career goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the section about what your career plans are is also very important. I think when you do an MBA, you should have a clear idea of why you want to do that MBA, the kind of skills that you want to get out of the MBA, and how those skills are going to help you in your post-MBA plans. And you know, many times people tell me, well, but I'm not sure exactly what I want to do. And that is fine. And you know, and what we also see many times is that our MBAs change their minds during their time at IMD. And again, that's fine, but understanding where your weaknesses, if you will, are, and the kind of skills that certain industries are looking for, and how you are going to close that gap from where you are now to where you want to be. I think that's very important, and it talks about your self-awareness, and that's something that I didn't mention before. But I think is for us very important to see that you're self-aware, that you understand that that there are limitations to all of us, and how you want to improve those limitations.
And again, we go back to the story. It's really trying to give us a round idea of who you are without gaps, because that's also where we'll then start thinking, okay, why is there a gap here? That doesn't make sense. The story isn't coherent. So when we read, we're looking also for that coherence that shows that you've taken the time, that this is something that makes sense in your bigger plan, that IMD, is a school that you've picked for certain reasons that again fit in your plan. So just going back to that story, taking that time and really polishing it, and having somebody read it, somebody that perhaps knows you very well or not very well at all, so to see if it all fits together. So now we've got the application done. We've written our coherent story, we've picked the curiosity of the admissions committee. We've been selected for an interview. What happens next? And let's do a sort of in normal times, and then perhaps at the end we'll see how we've adapted it to the current situation. Sure. So in normal times, what happens?
Sure. Before we go into that, one of the things that we haven't discussed is recommenders, and it's also one of the requirements that we have, and I think choosing recommenders is an art, and they are very important. It's a very important part of your application as well, because those are the kind of people who should have worked with you already, so they know, as I was saying before, what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and they can give a very good insight into you as an applicant. So choosing the recommenders carefully is very important.
Maybe these recommenders also have a longer view of where they see you. They've seen the potential in you. Maybe a mentor has followed you for certain years, and they have that wider, bigger vision that perhaps you don't have yourself. So again, like you say, make sure you choose those right people.
Absolutely. So, if the CEO of your company knows you well, has worked with you directly, then by all means ask them to be your recommender. But if you're just asking them because, they have a nice title, but they don't know you very well, I would prefer that. Yeah. You ask your line manager for a recommendation. But anyway, so that was a short parenthesis on recommenders. So you submit your application by the 1st of May. And then the admissions committee will be, the team will be processing all of the applications. And then the admissions committee will review those applications all together, and we will then decide who we want to invite for an interview, and who, unfortunately, we decide that the process stops there. The decision for interviews for the May deadline is going to be on May 15th, so everybody should hear from us by that date. It might be that we let you know before that, but by May 15th, everybody will hear about our decision. And then if you're invited to an interview, you will, in normal circumstances, you would be invited to one of our in-person assessment days. An assessment day is a full day that we organize either in Lausanne or abroad. We travel to different locations around the world, and it's a full day where we really try to get to know you a little bit better. And that's the main objective of the day. We want to see if you would be a good fit for the school, and if IMD would be a good fit for you as well. It gives you also a very good opportunity to ask questions, to meet current students or alumni if we're abroad. So I cannot tell you a lot about what happens on that day because, you know, we like to keep it as a surprise, but there's a one-to-one interview, I can tell you that for sure. And then there are a number of exercises. Some of them are group exercises and some of them are individual exercises. Then once everybody has gone through the assessment days, we then make the final decisions. The admissions committee gets together again and we decide who we want to make an offer into the program. And the final decision will be sent for the May deadline by June 26th. And again, it could be that we send the decisions earlier, but by June 26th, everybody would have heard.
And again, can you tell, the idea is that we look at not just the profile per se as a standalone, we also assess people against the pool of applicants. So the May will also be pitched against themselves and against the February accepted ones as well. So obviously the further along the deadlines we go, the more competitive it becomes. But at the same time, again, it goes to reinforce the fact that we're always looking for those people that make sense in the class in order to keep that diversity high, right? I mean, that's the challenge.
Absolutely, and that's a very good point. Yes, we have only 90 places, which, you know, as I think it's a great thing when it comes to the way the class works together. But when you're trying to put together a class of 90 people and you receive many applications that are very, very good, then it's very difficult for us. It makes our job very, very difficult. But yes, I think the February deadline probably is the deadline where, you know, we are able to make, not pretty much, but you know, as many offers as we would like because the class is empty. In May, as you were saying, we're already comparing the May deadline candidates with the May deadline candidates, but also with all of the candidates who have already accepted the offer in February. So, you know, it becomes a little bit more competitive. However, you know, if you're thinking about applying in May, I can tell you that I don't remember having made an offer or not having made an offer in May because we already had somebody very similar in February, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think once you get to the September deadline is when things get a little bit more complicated, but for now we're okay.
We're okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we do have seats in September, otherwise we wouldn't have the deadline, so we do keep seats free. So it's
absolutely,
impossible. So even if you're applying then, just be aware that it is a little bit more competitive, but there will still be places available. Okay, so so now we've gone through the process. We've had our assessment day. We've been assessed. We've heard it's June, end of June. We've heard whether we're in or out, and so by then, you know, what if we do accept the offer, then the rest of our team will take over with the onboarding. You know, there'll be a portal, there'll be, you know, the housing, the visas, etc., etc. But we won't go into that now because I think you know, maybe we need to have a live chat specifically for those who have been admitted and you know, on the next steps, what happened. So so all in all, this is roughly what happens in terms of process in regular times. Can you tell us a little bit now, a little bit about how we've adapted to the current situations where lockdown is practically all over the world, travel has been curtailed or stopped altogether. We're working from home. So what have we put in place, and how have we, you know, how will that affect the May deadline?
So the lockdown in Switzerland it didn't take us by surprise, I don't think, but it happened right in the middle of our February deadline. And so we had planned a lot of assessment days, both in Lausanne and abroad, and we had to switch those assessment days to online assessment days. And because I have a wonderful team, they were able to really switch the assessment days to online very quickly. And I think the first online assessment that we had, I was a bit like, ooh, how is this going to work? And I think probably the majority of our candidates felt the same, you know, a bit like apprehensive. And I have to say, and hopefully the candidates would tell you the same, but for me, they went really, really well. Of course, I would lie if I said it's the same than if you had an in-person interaction. No, it's not the same. But I think considering the circumstances, it went really, really well. And
I mean, we were able to basically translate almost every exercise.
Yeah.
Bar the ones that really need to be done in person, but everything else that we could translate online, we did. Of course, we couldn't organize lunch with the MBAs. We couldn't organize sitting in a class with the MBAs, but everything else, I think, you know, we did it. We're also a small company as such. You know, IMD is a small school, so with a small team, all of us, in fact, not just our team. I mean, even program delivery, we managed to switch very quickly.
Absolutely. So yeah, so as Marcela was saying, we were able to keep the majority of the exercises that we do in person, except for one. But I'm actually already thinking about how we can translate that exercise to an online platform. So watch the space.
Watch the space, right?
So we'll see. So we've been doing all of the assessment days online. Not all of them, because you know, we had already done maybe 4 or 5 assessment days in person. But the rest of the assessment days became an online thing. So that's what we did with the assessment days. In terms of our admissions process, I think, because our program starts in January, we are in a different position than some of our some of the other business schools, and so we don't have to really worry too much about extending deadlines and so on. We still have 3 deadlines ahead of us before the program starts in January. And so we don't see right now the need to extend deadlines. Can I guarantee that by September we don't decide that, hey, you know, we may extend the deadline until, I don't know, October? We may, but at the moment the plan is to keep things as they are. In terms of submission of documents, we know that some of you have problems with accessing your degrees and so on. So again, it's a matter of talking to us and let us know what the difficulties are, and then we will be more than happy to be very flexible about, you know, when we can receive the documents and so on. So don't worry too much about that. And then finally, the Gmat and Gre, I think are the probably the most stressful tests at the moment. And I think a lot of people feel like, oh my God, but I don't have a test, I don't have a date. What do I do? So what we have decided is that we're going to accept applications without a Gre or a Gmat at the moment. So if you're thinking about applying in May and you don't have the test, by all means submit your application as it is. We know that online, the Gmat and Gre both are available now online, and they should be available everywhere that they used to be available in in-person format, except for China and Iran, I think it is. In China, we know that the centers are planning to open in June, but I think that the majority of places have already been booked. So if you think, if you need to book a test in China, by all means go to the Gmat website and try to book it as quick as possible, because they're not having a lot of places available. But for the rest of you, you can do the online test. Again, it doesn't have to be by the 1st of May. Talk to us and we can see exactly by when you could take the test. We know that a lot of people are taking the test online now, so I'm sure that places will become less and less available as we speak.
But in the meantime, it could also be that some tests, as we unlock down, as we unlock our societies, then eventually there might be some places that open up live tests.
Absolutely. And I think that's something, keep track of your own test centers in your area. If they are available, then and they are starting to open, then is another option. And in the end, if by the time we're making decisions you still don't have your Gmat or your GRE, what we would do is a conditional offer. So our offers would be conditional for you, you taking the Gmat or the GRE, and once we have the score and a score that we think is an okay score, then that offer would become unconditional. So we're gonna work with you. We're gonna be as flexible as we can. So if you're having any issues, by all means just contact us and we'll be very, very happy to help you with this. We understand that it can be very stressful and we don't want anybody to be more stressed than necessary, and not for the Gmat or the GRE at all.
But by all means, sorry, I just want to add that, but by all means carry on studying.
Oh my God, yeah. We're not waiving the Gmat or the GRE. We're not waiving it. But we're being flexible, but we're not being that flexible. But also, we've received a couple of emails from candidates who are a little bit worried about, especially the Gmat online test. I don't know if you have read a few of the comments of people who have already taken the test, and apparently you are not allowed to use pen and paper when taking the test. You have to use an online whiteboard. I'm not an expert on the online test, so don't ask me any questions about that test because I will not be able to answer anything. But what I can tell you is that if you're uncomfortable taking the online test because of what you've read, again, talk to us and we should be able to offer you an alternative. And
also, sorry to add, in the meantime, also talk to us, because we will have had feedback from candidates who not just have read that it's complicated, but maybe that have gone through the process. And we hear things that there's an online mini course about how to use the whiteboard. We don't know yet. We know people that will take it. We don't know yet what it's like. So also talk to us in terms of hearing how our other candidates have fared, and therefore what our, how we've adapted to that feedback as well. If and as countries then open up. So I think it's kind of a little bit of a balancing act, right?
Absolutely. But yeah, I think the main message here is communication. Communicate with us, and so we are able to help you.
Okay, I think there's, we're talking about, we forgot one important thing, scholarships. How do I apply? Because, do I apply for scholarships? How I've given you an application, I've been successful, but I don't know if I've had a scholarship or not. So how do we deal with scholarships?
Sure. So we every deadline we offer a number of scholarships, and there are scholarships that are offered throughout the process. So in each deadline, and those are the diversity scholarships, the merit scholarships, and the financial needs scholarships. So for the diversity and merit scholarships, you don't have to do anything really. You will be considered if you're made an offer to the program. The financial aid scholarship or financial aid scholarship, we will ask you to submit some documents. We want to see where you are at financially, to understand, what your financial need really is. So we need for you to submit that. Ideally before or like at the same time that you submit your application, so that we already have the information, and if we decide to make an offer, we can also tell you that we're able to offer you some amount of money for the financial aid scholarship. And then each deadline has some scholarships attached to the deadline. So for the May deadline, we have 3 scholarships, and Marcella, if I don't remember all of them, by all means, let me know. So we have a scholarship worth 50,000 pounds, Swiss francs, not pounds, which is the 76 class MBA class scholarship. So our class of 1976, they are extremely generous, and they offer every year a scholarship, is a merit scholarship to one of our admitted candidates.
And that's the best all round. It's an all-rounder kind of merit on all accounts.
Yeah. Then we have the another 50,000 Swiss francs scholarship for the Stuart Hamilton scholarship. And again, I think we used to offer this only to women. Now it's open to everyone. And again, it's pretty much merit based. But if you go into our website, you will see exactly the characteristics that we're looking for that scholarship. And finally, we have the Forte scholarship, and that's only open to women, and that's 20,000 francs. And again, is based on merit, but you have to be a woman for that. So I'm sorry, the males in the audience. But anyways, so those are the scholarships that we're gonna be looking at in May.
And then as you said, throughout there are always the diversity, the merit, and the financial need. And then there are also some specific external donor linked ones. One that is for Denmark nationals, so nationals of Denmark, the Staten Scholarship and the Nestle Scholarship for women. And their deadline there is the 1st of September. So also when you're doing your financial planning, make sure that you take that into account as well. The ones that are attached to the deadline, obviously you'll have an earlier answer than the ones where the deadline is September 1st, so you won't know until much later in terms of whether you get it attributed or not. Okay, so I think all in all, we've pretty much said a lot of things. I think the one thing that we can add just before we take the questions is that as things are looking for now, and again, it's on a day-to-day basis, we think maybe that by our next deadline, July, we could be back on campus. And so we would also, like every time, suggest and encourage you to come and visit us, come and visit the school, get that experience, have lunch with the MBAs in July if the weather stays like it is now. It's an amazing experience to have lunch on the terrace. But I don't want to add too much beauty details in case we're still not back in campus.
Yeah, and I think, because there's so much uncertainty, and it the Swiss government seems to want to open up a little bit, little by little, in the next 2 months. So yes, hopefully by June we're able to be back on campus. But it might be that many of your countries are still on lockdown, even after June, July, August, who knows. So I think for me, one of the things that I can tell you is try to reach out to as many alumni and as many current students as possible, because even if you cannot come and see us, just trying to have a conversation with somebody who is either living the experience or has already had the experience with us. I think it's the next best thing, I would say. And hopefully at one point, everybody will be able to travel again freely, and then we can welcome you in our campus, which would make me extremely happy.
And also, I think following the blog, now we're doing so much more online to get that feel of the place, the company, our values, how we work together. I don't think it's to be rubbished, it's that of course it's not the same as in person, but you can still get the feel of what what our school is about, what we value, how we work together, what are our current MBA studying, how the blog has a lot of thoughts and sort of afterthoughts of what they've gone through, especially in these times. They've had also time to experience things differently, and I think that's also a valuable way to get a feel if you can't actually come.
Absolutely.
So I don't want to go too long over time, because we do have some questions that I'd like to ask you. So one of them is about work experience, international exposure. It's two questions, but I want to put them together. So if I'm dealing with global vendors on a daily basis, would that be called global exposure? Would that count as my international experience, even though I haven't actually lived abroad? And that's from Abhijit. So thank you, Abhijit, for the question.
Yeah, and I think that's, I didn't have that specific example when I was talking about how to define international exposure, but definitely is anything that takes you outside of a very kind of local perspective, dealing with global vendors, understanding their perspectives, which probably are different from your own perspectives. So anything that is not focused on your local kind of environment.
Okay. Another question we have is family business. So if I work from a family business, if I come from a family business environment, what about my recommenders? So Krushank asks us that he's thinking of choosing his older brother and his mentor, and his mentor is self-employed and so does not have a company ID. So what is our take on this?
Sure. So I would prefer that your brother doesn't give you a recommendation, and I can understand that either your brother, sometimes your parents, or uncles and aunts, work with you on a regular basis, and you're very able to separate your professional life from your personal life. But at the same time, I think we always have this unconscious bias, and we don't even realize that. So I would prefer that no family members give you a recommendation. I think, if you have a family business, maybe you have clients that you have worked with, and it could even be somebody working for you. And I think the mentor idea is a great idea. Somebody who knows and who understands your past. I think that's great. And if they don't have an ID, I'm not sure, Marcella, you may know this better than me.
So normally, for if you have a personal Gmail or Hotmail, then we ask the recommender to send in a copy of their ID so that we can just make sure that it's not some random person. So yes, by all means, ask them also to add to the recommendation a copy of their personal passport, ID, whatever. Okay, I have another question. I have two questions I'm trying to bunch together about age. So how are we sensitive about age? Do we have an upper age limit? The average age is 31. Do we consider candidates more nearing 40? And how does age also affect the job placement post MBA? So can you talk about age?
So yeah, average age in our MBA is around 30-31, and the majority of our MBAs are actually in the 28 to 32-year-old kind of bracket. Does that mean that we don't accept anybody younger? No. Does that mean that we don't accept anybody older? No. So we have, I think the oldest person in the class this year is 36, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So again, we think that, you know, once you have a lot of experience, and I'm talking for more experienced candidates, once you have a lot of experience, and depending on where you are in your life, a full-time MBA may not necessarily be the right program for you. In general, doesn't mean that we don't look at applications of more experienced candidates. No, we do, and that's why we have a 36-year-old person in the class. But I think that's a very personal kind of preference. We have an executive MBA program, and I think that their average age is around 41.
Yeah.
And then the kind of students in the class are going to be more similar to your experiences and progression in your career.
Because that's also, sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to add, because that's also part of the learning process. If there's too much of a gap, you're too much on the older side, you might not get the most out of this experience. The same with if you're too young and if you don't have that minimum 3 years work experience that we ask for, then you just might not be able to really get out of it as much as the program was designed for. And that's why there is this kind of sensitivity towards the cutoff point, you know, the sort of the too young and the too old, just because we also want to make sure that your expectations of what you're going to learn and what the other members of the class will be able to learn are also matched.
Mm-hmm.
So it's again, it's that balancing act. It's actually quite difficult putting 90 people together that can learn from each other and that also create that network that then later on they can count on when they're going through, again, could be career transitions or situations at work, that they can count on people who have similar stage experience. Mm-hmm. Because in any case, you'll have access to the wider alumni network once you're part of IMD anyway. So if you're looking for support for the decision and you're looking for an executive who's got 20 years on you, you're part of that community already, not necessarily in your promotion year.
But to answer, you know, the question in terms of is there a minimum age requirement or a maximum age requirement? No, we don't have that, and we will look at every person on a case-by-case basis. But I think it would not be realistic to say, yes, you know, if you are 40 years old and you have 20 years of work experience, the MBA is for you. Probably not. Probably another program with people in a similar position than yourself would be a better program for you.
Okay, so I have two questions that also I'm going to bunch together. So are there any specific criteria for scholarships like GMAT score, GPA, work experience? And if I apply without a GMAT score, will that compromise my ability to apply for a scholarship?
Mm-hmm. So the merit ones, yes, all of that will play a part in the scholarship. So we will want to see that you have good academics, that you have good work experience, and that you have a good GMAT. With the scholarships, with not having a GMAT and applying to the scholarships, so I think. Again, because the offer will not be unconditional, no, we're not going to be able to look at you at that point for scholarships. What we may be able to do is to give a conditional scholarship again. So, you know, if you then take the GMAT and then your GMAT is great, then you would get the scholarship. But then if your GMAT is not so great, we may be able to give you an offer, but not the scholarship.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to resume with talk to us case by case. Because I also have another question regarding the GMAT, saying, you know, I have a date on May 12th. Ines, thank you very much for your question. What if my score isn't sufficient? What do I do? Do I retake it? Is it going to affect my application? Is this going to be a conditional offer? But then what if it's not sufficient? So I think instead of going into all these details, I think it'd be best to talk to us and
yes, I think I can see how this is super stressful. I think GMATs in general are already stressful. I think probably that's the single most stressful part of the application for the majority of candidates. Don't let the situation that we're living in stress you even more. Okay, if you know, you can talk to us. What we've done in the past and before the COVID happened, if you know somebody didn't took their GMAT and their score was not that great, we would work with them and see if, you know, if they could retake it and so on, and we will continue working with you. I hope that by the end of today's live chat, the message that I'm sending is, you know, talk to us. We're here to help. That's our main job, is to help you. Okay, we want all of you to be successful. Not all of you will be able to be successful, but that's what we really would like to. So talk to us, and we will try to help you as much as we can.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and there was another part to that question. The GMAT question was also, do we prefer GMAT or GRE? The GMAT online format is not really that candidate friendly. I see a significant drop in scores. So do we have a preference?
No, we don't. We accept both. If you want to take the GMAT, you take the GMAT. If you want to take the GRE, you take the GRE. What I've been told, and I don't know if that's true or not, but what I've been told is that the GRE is a bit easier. I'll leave it there.
Okay. Okay. And what about resume? Do I have to fit it in on one page, or can it go to two?
One page. That is very important. One page. And you should follow the format
provided.
That we have. Yeah.
Okay. We have another question is, do we see any possibility of having on-campus assessment days for the May deadline? So that would be in June.
I wish I could tell you right now. Yes. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if we're able to go back to the office in June, then we will try our hardest to have at least a couple of in-person assessment days. But it really depends on how we are allowed to go back to the office, in terms of how many people we can have in one room. So there are a lot of uncertainties at the moment. So I would lie if I said, yes, sure. I don't know. If they're able to come back, we'll do our best, but I don't know.
And also we'll go back to assessment days on campus, just like that. Like we did online. You can't see.
Absolutely.
You couldn't see it. But yeah. Like I have another recommenders question. So out of my two recommenders, one's my ex-boss who's joined a different organization this financial year, and the second one is my current boss. Will that be okay? And then there's another question as well that I want to add to that, is that what if it's somebody who is my superior, but I don't want them to know that I'm applying for an MBA? Would a peer also do?
Okay, so for the first part of the question, yes, as long as they know you or they have worked with you and they can give good insights about you, definitely. The second part, I'm not sure if I'm understanding. So they want to ask their superior, but they don't want them to know.
They don't. You know, ideally they think that they should.
So you don't have to ask your line manager. We understand again that many times you're not telling your companies that you're thinking about doing an MBA, and that's perfectly understandable and fine. Then find somebody, a previous manager, or somebody that works at your same level, or, you know, if you don't want to involve anybody from your company, again, somebody from previous experience.
Okay. And then there is, so another question is, could you say something on overrepresented backgrounds, how to stand out from the applicant pool?
Oh, that's a very good question. And I think we the thing is that you don't know who is overrepresented. We do though.
We do.
And I think it's going back to what we were saying at the beginning of this live chat is, creating a story that makes you compelling, that, ticks many of the boxes of what we were saying before, but the kind of skills that we're looking for in a candidate, the kind of characteristics that we're looking for. And if you're lucky enough to go into the assessment day, that really is a great opportunity to showcase who you are beyond the application. In the end, I always say an application is a piece of paper, and you can try to put as much information as you can, but there's a limit to the information that you can put in there. Once you go into the assessment day, is really when you can showcase your skills without being aggressive. I always say be assertive, don't be aggressive. And sometimes we see that in the assessment day as well. But I think it's creating a story, and as Marcella was saying before, leaving us wanting more. We want to know more about this person and their achievements. I think the CV is a great place to talk about your achievements. I saw a CV the other day that it was literally just there was a word per bullet point, and I'm like, we never told you that you only had to put one word. Just write a sentence. It's a great opportunity for you to tell us the wonderful things that you've achieved. Use the hobby section or interest section in the CV. I actually ask quite a lot of questions about those, and it's always like, oh wow, this person has traveled I don't know how many 1,000 miles in a motorcycle, and that's interesting. So sometimes it's even your personal experience and not the professional experience that makes us go like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think the message there is also, don't forget, like we were saying before, take your time to reflect on yourself. Because going on a motorcycle around the country might not seem like a big deal to you, but try and look at it from my point of view. Maybe it is a big deal, you just don't value it. So kind of try and find a different perspective on what maybe you think there are normal things, that because they're normal, or they don't come at a great cost to you, but actually that when you present them to other people, they actually are a little bit special. Because sometimes we don't see ourselves with the eyes of other people. So perhaps that's where a mentor or somebody who knows you very well can help in putting together your application form, that can shed that little bit of spotlight. But that really is something special that you did there. Okay, so a few more questions just before we finish. So what if I already have an MBA? Does it affect my chances of admission?
I think, again, it's part of the story. Sorry, I keep going back to that, but I think that's very good. I'll go back, why do you want to have a second MBA? We have had MBAs. I think this year we have 2 MBAs in the class who already have had an MBA. So it is possible. But I want to understand why you feel the need of doing another MBA. Generally, what we see is that the first MBA is more of a local MBA. It's not very international. It's right after you finish your first degree, and so there's not a lot of work experience in there. And then after the candidate has gained a few years of work experience, and they realize, okay, now I need an MBA that really will allow me to be more out there and kind of apply what I've learned in my work experience to my future career goals. So so it's not a definitely no. If you have an MBA, forget it. It's not a yes, definitely, but is part of your story. Tell us why do you think that you have to have a second MBA? And I apologize because my cat is trying to get in the room, and if you hear a meow,
no,
that's her.
We don't for now. We don't for now. Another sort of quick kind of how-to question: photo requirement for a CV and application. Will it be relaxed? Will be relaxed to a recent picture, if not very recent, considering the current circumstances. I think, I mean, as long as it's a picture where we can see you, I mean, you know, just wear even the top suit and use your phone, you know, a shirt. For the application form, we don't need a super formal picture, but one of you recent, yes, not when you're 15. In any case, if you're admitted, we'll be having a formal picture taken for all the CV and the profile work. So we won't be using that one for later. What about deferrals due to the current situation? Are we considering deferrals?
So at the moment, our deferral policy is we only defer for force majeure situations. So if in case of illness or of yourself or a family member, or something going on in your work. Sometimes it's that you're working on a project and the project is not finishing, so we would give a deferral for that. But generally, those are the only two circumstances. At the moment, to be perfectly honest, it's very early for us to talk about deferrals. As you know, our program doesn't start until January, and so we expect that from now until then, things will go back to normal. And so, we would expect that we're able to start the program as planned, and that, everybody's able to join us. Again, as I was saying before, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it might be that we're able to open, but not all of the borders are open. And if it's an issue with visas, not being able to get a visa to start the program, we most definitely would give a deferral. But again, we will go on a case-by-case basis. The plan, as it is at the moment, is to start the program as normal, and so I don't see any other reason why we would be offering other kinds of deferrals.
And also, don't forget, we 2 weeks ago, we had a special COVID live chat with our dean, Sean Meehan, where he talked a little bit about how and what we expect for next year. Do we expect any changes? Will we be able to deliver the same kind of experience? It's on our YouTube channel, so I suggest, I really encourage you to have a look at what he says about what we look forward to for 2021. We have another question. Okay, we have another one on Gmat. I think we've done a lot of Gmat here. Abhijit, again, I had been one of the assessment centers, which was a day-long process, having group discussion, presentation, some case study, role play, personal interview. Is IMD Assessment Development Center similar to that only? So we're not a development center, we are us. we do our thing.
So I think, so is this a question about the assessment day? Yes.
I think what they want to know is, what is the assessment day like? But I think we did answer that at the beginning.
Yeah, and as I said, we cannot really reveal much about the assessment day because it's a bit of a surprise. And as I said before, we do the one-to-one interview, and then we have a number of exercises, some individual, some in group. But you have to be invited to see exactly what happens. It's nothing bad. It's actually quite a lot of fun.
Another question, is remotely managing teams the same as managing teams on site?
That is a very good question. No, it's not the same. It's not the same, working from home than working in the office. So it's not the same managing people remotely than managing people online, but that's a long discussion.
And I think if we go back to the story, like, it's not the same. Of course it isn't the same, but what have you learned? What have you seen? What have you were able to observe? Can you exercise self-awareness in terms of the dynamics that work or don't work or work differently? Once again, can you show us that reflective side, not necessarily that the practical quantifiable, because yes, we could find that perhaps somewhere else, but this could be the opportunity where you show us your self-awareness, your emotional intelligence, your ability to manage teams, and how when you only have the remote possibility. And I think we, even ourselves, we're experiencing that now, and reflecting even amongst our team. What are we learning? What works? What doesn't work? What are the issues that we have now that we have to look like this, that that don't apply? Okay, where are interviews held for American applicants? This is from Mike.
So generally, in normal circumstances, we would either go to New York. We actually, I was in New York with my colleague Jennifer just before the US decided to lock down the country. So we were lucky enough to be able to return home, but we were there just on the nick of time, and we had an assessment day there. So generally, we have them in New York. Or we will have them in Mexico, in Brazil. So, we try to go up and down the Americas to be able to capture anybody living in that area. If not, again, on normal circumstances, anybody can come on campus for the assessment day if you prefer to come and visit Lausanne. In the meantime, while we're not able to offer in-person assessment days, we're going to do them all online.
Mm-hmm. And do we value professional certificates like PMP, Scrum Master, or Certified Change Manager?
Yeah, anything that you've done, any certificates that you have, by all means, include them in your CV, include them in your application. If you have a CFA, if you are a CPA, any certificates, by all means, let us know.
Okay. And one last question. The application, there is a question on specific companies you want us to target. Should I name the companies or the field I would like to work post-MBA? Yeah, I think without giving too much away, I think, again, what makes sense? What stage are you at? Do you have a name of these companies, or don't you? Don't invent them if you don't have them. So be truthful in your answer, and show us also the stage where you're at. Yes, we would like to know that you are so focused that you've already identified one company, 2 and 3 options. But if you're not, then give us an idea of the field or the industry, or give us something that also we can work with, because that's also part of the assessment. If there's nothing concrete, how can we work together so that we then go to that specific career goal or company? I hope that answers there. I think I'm going to answer 2 last questions, just because they're easy ones, because we're way over time, and this will be recorded, so you'll be able to hear it again. One question was, can you shed some light on career development? We're going to have a live chat on career development itself in June, so once the dates are up, we'll let you know. And another one is what channels to communicate with you. So Ricardo, you'll have your regional advisor that you communicate with. You can also write to mbainfo@imd.org. If you're at the application stage, you can all write to mba.application@imd.org, and you can then come in contact with us. We're a small team. We all pick up the incoming communications. So unless it's your regional advisor with whom you've had close contact, who's followed you through the process, then it could be any one of us. Again, we're a small team. We help you. We do a little bit of everything all together. So for those of you whose questions we didn't manage to answer, please send them in to mbainfo@imd.org, and you will receive the recording of this once I have it. I will thank you and follow up and send you the live. We are going to have a next live chat on May 14th with Professors Jennifer Jordan, leadership professor, and Knut Hannes, I'm not sure I can pronounce his surname correctly, who teaches business and society, and who will talk to us about how they've had to modify their course to adapt to the current situation. You'll find the link soon, possibly next week already on our website. So I really encourage you to sign up for that. Anna, thank you so much. I know we've gone a little bit way more than a little bit over time. This is an important live chat, so thank you very much for sharing all the tips and tricks on admissions, especially with the May deadline coming up, with a lot of uncertainty around GMAT. Once again, I think the main message is you can apply without a GMAT or with a lower GMAT score. We will offer you a conditional offer, knowing that the GMAT centers are coming online, that some may be opening up test centers, live test centers. But I think the most important message is do talk to us. We will talk back on an individual basis and then adapt, show some flexibility our side, certainly to adapt to the current situation.
And Marcella, before we finish, if I can just leave 3 main tips with everyone. So one is, do your research. As we said, nowadays you cannot come to Lausanne to visit us, and while that's happening, use our alumni, our current MBAs, ourselves. Contact us. We'll be very happy to help with anything we can. And once everything goes back to normal, we'll be very happy to welcome you in our campus. The second thing is prepare. An application takes time. Do not take just a couple of hours to submit or to complete your application. Review your answers, review your essay. Do not copy and paste an essay from another school and forget then to change the name of the school. We see that, and that's a big no-no. Spell check, have somebody read your whole application, and as we were saying for the whole live chat, see if that person understands what the story that you're trying to tell. And then be authentic. This is the place to be truthful and to showcase yourself. Don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Tell us about you and about who you are, and this is the place to really show who you are and what your achievements are, and don't be shy about doing that. So I would just say, research, prepared, and be authentic.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Anna. Thank you, all of you, for attending and sticking with us for this whole hour. We wish you all the best. We hope to see many of you apply for our next deadline and maybe meet you on campus or on a Zoom online interview. Have a lovely day. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Bye-bye.